Hi everybody, this is Dean for the NS Stick channel. I'm here today with Don Schiff.
Don Schiff, I know me.
Jeez, I'm actually here at his studio. He's in Northern California in the Napa area now. So, actually I drove 2 hours today to come out here.
Right.
It's better than the 6 or 7 hours it would have taken me.
To get to the old place.
So now you're in my neighborhood.
Excellent, loving it.
I'm glad you love the neighborhood.
Oh, yes.
Glad to have you here.
Oh, good. We'll be drinking like crazy. You look good, Dean.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, we're all right.
All right. So thank you for doing an interview.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We're
Appreciate
having a good
it.
time.
Yeah, it's just working out great for the NS Stick channel.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured we'd start off with kind of where, how did you end up with the stick? Well, eventually ending up with the NS stick, because I know you actually played the stick, and
Yes.
before that was the bass.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that journey start for you?
Well, so I recall it twice now from the interview that didn't make it. It started like this again. It's deja vu
Wow.
all over again. So I was a professional bassist in Las Vegas, and then heard about at that time, the 10-string stick. So
How did you hear about it? Was it
it's a good
was
story.
it an advertisement?
No.
Because the internet didn't exist then.
It didn't. It was all Stagecoach, Pony Express, and, the occasional mother-in-law yelling out the window.
Smoke signals?
Yeah, well, there was that. That was the earlier technology. We've progressed since. So, what was the question?
How'd you find out about this?
Oh, yeah, I remember now. So, back when I lived in Vegas, they used to have kicks bands, is what they called them. So you go to a certain place with a group of musicians and practice and jam. And so this guy, his name is Les DeMerle, and he was quite a renowned drummer, and he was playing for Harry James at the time. And so he was telling me, he goes, I was just in L.A. Playing with this guy that plays bass and guitar at the same time, which was Emmett. And I thought that it resonated in me. Like, I always knew I'd do something different. I knew I'd play bass, but there would be something new that came along that I would somehow attach to. Was this, like, inside resonant voice, very audible. And then when I heard that, bass and guitar, that's it. That must be what I've been feeling all along. So I called up Stick Enterprises, and Utah still has my little piece of paper that I wrote inquiring about the stick. And I was 19 or 20, and I had a house, and I was living with Cynthia, and we were married at the time too. So neither one of us thought to buy paper or anything. So it's like, well, I've got a paper bag. So I tore off a section of a paper bag, and Utah kept that note of, I'm inquiring about the stick and too cheap to buy paper.
Oh, so you sent a letter to them?
Yeah, written on a paper bag.
Wow.
Yeah. Could have been worse, but paper bag is okay. So then I drove to Yucca Trails, where they lived at that time, and saw the stick and had it demonstrated and went, oh, that's exactly what I want. And then, the internal ego about, well, wait till I see what I can do on it. Let me try that. And then it was bass and fifths, and I fell all over the place going, I can't play anything. That's so disappointing. So then I decided I'd buy it anyway, and then took it home, and 3 months of, did I waste my money?
Yeah.
So
a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
I remember
right
hearing
first.
stories like that. It's like, who was that teacher at the first Freehands?
Coming to you.
I forgot what his name was. He did some seminars there. He was the very special guest. What was his name?
Tony Levin.
No, that was the last one. The one before that. Remember?
Alfonso Johnson.
Alfonso Johnson. Same thing. He buys it and he puts it in the corner.
Yeah.
He doesn't touch it for months. And I've heard other people say the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You pick it up and they're like,
that's not what I thought. Darn. The right hand works good. Fourths, I get it. And it was just funny. And your bass line runs a different way. Used to going low to high, and now you're going low to high, but going in the opposite direction. So, and then as we were discussing before, it's bass and fifths, and was already a professional bassist, and I didn't have time to really learn on it. I had to adapt. Everything that I do on bass must lay really well on the NS. So I really got good at making my fourths bass lines sound good even in fifths, but then taking it a step further and learning the really great rewards that there are in having a bass in fifths and being able to play these lines stretching really high and still being able to keep a solid bass foundation, and then adapting that to my bass playing made me a much better bass player.
Wow.
And vice versa. And then the NS came along, and oh wow, now I get it even more so. It's in fourths, and and you can tap it just like this stick, but you can also pluck it and strum it. And that was the big advantage. And Emmett was asking, now, don't you wish I invented this first? I said no, because I would have never ever gone to the stick itself going, oh, fifths? Oh, you got to be kidding me. This is, no, I can tap on this one. So I was really, really glad I had all the years of no choice. Fifths in the bass and fourths in the right hand. And made it work.
I don't think I could have done that. And that's the reason I chose the NS over any other stick configuration, was the fourths tuning, because I come from a bass background as well. And just, it's like, what? You know, my brain just couldn't go, get around that. And, but it has a huge range. In your one hand, left hand, you play that bass note and then tap a chord.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like mud. It's melodic, and you got it all.
You got that bass, and then. But I do see. I don't know if you because you play it, and I've never really attempted it. Processing that bass side of a stick. I mean, there's some great sounds, but if you process something in a studio, like, I'm going to get a great bass sound, but then I would think the chord of that wouldn't ring out like you want it to.
What was really funny is you go in there and you go, okay, and the engineer would look at what you got, and you go, oh, okay, you got the stick, I get it. And then you play something really cool in the left hand, and they always take the right and the left separate, but you went into the melody range, and then the engineer and producer would think, okay, but there's going to be guitars, acoustic or electric, everything in that range, but now I can't separate it.
Right.
So as great as it was, but don't do that. Put it on another track or another part, and that was always disappointing, because to me, once they requested that, though I could do it, it wasn't saying the same to me as if, okay, the hands are all working together, now you're asking me to, okay, just play from this finger right into that crack there. Don't go beyond that. It wasn't working. But, you do what you're asked to do. But my preference would be, okay, well, work it out, because it's a new instrument and a new part, and can be done. So
how were you kind of approached with the NS then? Because, I mean, it didn't even exist, first of all, when you first picked up the stick.
Yeah.
So it was, what, like 98, 99-ish, somewhere around there?
When the prototypes came out. That Dean and I have.
Just by coincidence that, we ended up with the prototypes. I mean, you got it directly from Emmett. Mine must have made a rounds.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It did, and I'm always aware of who has it. And I always think, oh, okay, that's really nice. Let me know if you're ever going to sell it or something. And then, I always figure being... I think of it like being a hog. Oh, I want to have the first two ever put together, but I don't really. Well, I've got one, and then was it Patrick that you bought it from?
Yeah.
He had it, that you got it.
That's who I bought it from, and what a nice guy. I mean, he tried it, he played it, and he did what he can. I think he went to a stick seminar also, and I've seen pictures of him, and it just wasn't for him. He just really wanted to be more of a jazz guitar guy. And he went in that direction, but he wanted somebody who really wanted to play the instrument to buy it. Yeah. And apparently he had it for sale for a long time on Craigslist, and nobody really kind of, there's a lot of timing. When can we meet? When can we do that? Yeah. Just all worked out perfectly for us. He was meeting family up here. Correct. And we met up in San Francisco and at a cafe, and pulled it out, and he let me pay half up front, and then he's like, oh, play around for it a while. I'm like, really? Like, I've never met you, Yeah. super sweet guy, such a great guy, and you know, got a great price also. I can't discount that. I can't complain there. But man, yeah.
Yeah,
and
then
then
we have it.
And then, you know, he's like, yeah, this is actually the prototype. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, you should talk to Don Schiff.
Yeah, because he always wants to know where it ends up.
So yeah, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
I contacted you when I was on a business trip down to LA.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped by your house and got a lesson.
There we go.
Kicked me off from there.
And you haven't looked back since?
No, I haven't. It's been very rewarding for me. It's an amazing instrument.
And you play it so well.
Oh, I try.
Yeah.
So you started with the NS, and so do you now pretty much primarily play the NS, or are you going between?
I know. Good question. I'm remembering we had this first very funny interview. If you don't like this one, you would have loved the other one. But we were talking about what was the question?
Did you go back and forth? Like,
oh yeah,
is this your main instrument now?
Right,
or
right. Yes and no. But before I forget again, what I was going to say was there's a beauty if you have both the stick and the NS stick, whereas when I played more of the grand stick, and maybe I wouldn't play the NS for a while, and I'd pick it up and I go, oh, my chops are down. Oh, okay, this is a little uncomfortable, and then I have to build my chops back up. But it goes the other way beautifully, whereas if you play more of the NS and then you go back and pick up the tenor grands, you go, oh, this is like slicing through butter with a hot knife. It's just effortless. So whenever I do play the NS more now, but it hasn't affected my playing at all. I pick up the other one and I go, I'm still good. Okay. It's all right. I didn't lose anything.
You don't like forget the inverted fist.
No.
Like that.
That's a good point too. No, it's just it obviously feels different, and you hold it a little different, and then the muscle memory is okay. Everything is like you're looking in a mirror and backwards.
No, I remember watching this DVD that's out, the Stick Night '99 or something.
Yeah.
You didn't have the NS then. You had the stick at that time.
I think I did both.
Did you do both? But I remember you playing Rainfall on the stick, on the normie stick. And that took me for a loop because that's not right. Because I've only seen you play Rainfall on the NS. So you obviously had to relearn it.
That's a great question.
To play on the NS.
I did. And it comes back to originally Rainfall was written on the stick and fifth space line. Mm-hmm. And then when I got the NS, it was strange in that, okay, I don't have that reach anymore where it goes up that high, so I have to make it feel the same. Mm-hmm. They're not exactly the same notes if I were to go note for note, and what's the difference, but it feels the same. And that was like the magic of you just put yourself into the instrument and go, okay, it doesn't have to be exactly note for note, but it has to feel exactly the same. And,
right.
Yeah.
Would you be able to go back to that and play Rainfall?
Yeah.
You can. You can go back and forth and play it. Wow.
Different stretch. I was going to do something. I don't remember what it was. Ever since I said Dean older and don't remember, I don't remember a goddamn thing now. And I don't even remember why I picked this up to show anything, but
talking about Rainfall.
I know, and I was going to pick up off. I guess that would be of interest. So the pattern on NS. I'm going to tune it. It's a little flat. It's invisible with these instruments. It's really an incredible invention. So now I'll go get the other one.
Okay. This would be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting that I said I could do it, and it'd be interesting if I actually can. I'll be over here from you. Tell a story, Dean.
So while we wait for Don.
There, I'm back.
Oh, he's back.
Now this is I've got this back in, I don't know when, but it was prior to being able to switch to mono and stereo. But little trick: if you put a mono in and you pull it out just right, and don't move or breathe, then it'll hold both sides. Okay. Where are you? There it is.
Wow.
Sure, I remember everything. So, and check this out too. The arrangement capabilities on these, on the 10 and the 12 are just, got a lot going on there, more so than you can on the NS. So one of the greater advantages of this is the vastness of being able to play more notes, even though they duplicate, gives you a lot larger of a sound. So there's a way around that too for us NSers. So again, oops. Okay, so now I will show you. Notice how it was a big, large chord somewhere around here. So the way to play something like that, or to extend that this range is so big, you can play the chord and it sounds like I've got a bass and I've got a melodic instrument, not a something thick sounding. It actually has a melodic tonality into the bass side. Can't necessarily do that with the NS. Put it here on the landing pad. Stay! They're very obedient. After all these years, they train well. So,
now you play this one in a 5/7 configuration. So
somebody asked me that the other day. I go, no, I don't. Then I looked at it and I went, oh, maybe I do. Yeah, it is. But the 7th melody string is not my favorite.
Oh.
So I rarely use it. And so it's my little spacer. So it's like an 11 string. Yeah, with a little spacer in there. It's the yellow caution tape. You're getting close. Your finger could touch the bass note and ruin everything. So. Oh. Okay. Okay, so I was mentioning something about... Oh, the arrangement. Okay, so you have something. Oh, now I gotta play it again. Come on, kids. Okay, there it is. Okay, that's better. So, with the standard stick, I would have these fingers to be doing things like this with, but alas, no strings here. So, you can switch your hand over, and then you have somewhat of that equivalent of doing that. And it can come into play... Ooh, nice. So, being able to play this instrument kind of like the other, where you would be able to, it's just on the opposite side of your hand. Did that kind of make sense, Dean?
Yeah.
Somewhere in my
instead
head.
of stretch
Yes,
going
yes.
this way, you're going
There you
this
go.
way.
Thank you.
I think that's what you're saying.
I think that is what I'm saying, and if it's not, that makes much more sense than what I think I was saying.
So, what is it about this that really resonated with you, going from bass to... Did you have a 10 or 12 string back then, or both?
Yes, yeah.
And then going to this, because obviously you really took to this because it became your main instrument.
Well,
so
the trick was coming from a bass player, and I'd go into sessions, and another part B to the question you didn't ask, but I'll ask it anyway. How did you ever get it on recordings? Because time is money, and when you go in and say, oh, I'd like to experiment with something, it's like, yeah, well, that's great and all, but...
yeah.
So I just take it in and say, this is my new bass. And so then there was no question that I was going to experiment. I just said, "Oh, it's a bass. Let's see if this tone is right for what you want." And then you'd play, and they would love it. And then I would say, "Okay, well, it's actually a grand stick or a 10-string. So next time, ask for it by name, so I'll know what you want." And so that's how I started getting it on recordings, and then got known as, "Oh, okay, he plays the stick, but really a bass," which is really, when I would get called, what they're really asking for is, we want a bass player. And then it was like, okay, well, and then you also play the weird instrument, so we're just going to say, do what you do.
Was that the NS or the?
That was the regular, the grand or 10-string at the time.
Okay,
yeah. So it's okay. Do what you do. We know the bass is going to be covered in whatever funny instrument you want to bring in. Knock yourself out. We don't care. So
did you call it the super bass?
Oh yeah, somebody coined the phrase. Oh, yeah, bass plus. Eric Norlander from Rocket Scientist. You're going to play the bass plus. Cover the bass, but plus whatever else you do. It's nice. We like it. So, oh, yes, okay, now the question they're asking. So then I gravitated to this because it was trying to, and I worked a lot on making my fifth bass line lay like fourths lines if they needed to, and be able to then go into, okay, well, this would be a classic fifths line like you hear on Rainfall. But also not always having it sound like, I call it a guh kind of sound, whereas a bass, when you pluck it, is more of a puh.
Okay,
and so EQ-wise, you could do some things to make the clack not so much, or the crispness not so much, by tapping.
Right.
And so I used to mute when I would tap a little bit, ever so slightly, to take the brightness off of it, to make a tap sound more like a pluck sound. And then when Emmett called me over, there was myself, I think Tony Levin tried it, Greg Howard,
he was
Bob
calling
Culbertson.
you about the NS.
Yeah, when it wasn't, the prototypes first came out. It's like, okay, well, I have this new configuration. Come on over and try it out and give your opinion on it.
Were all of you in the same room, or he just brought one guy in at a
Oh,
time?
no, we were all together.
Oh,
I think Tony didn't come over at that time, so he wasn't there at that moment.
So it was like you, Greg,
Bob.
Wow, that must have been kind of cool.
It was.
Everybody in the same room.
Yeah, now you try it. Here, give me it. I want to try it. And then give your opinion on it. And so I went, okay, straight force. Okay, I get that would be really easy for everybody to understand and get it. The beauty of it still being in stereo, so you could put all your effects on one side that won't affect the other. At that time, I felt that the NS bass tone sounded better than my stick bass tone, but that was back then.
Did you have a stick bass, or was it?
Oh,
you mean the bass from your stick?
Yeah. Good clarification. My 10-string or 12, whatever I had at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And so now there's other configurations. I forget the guy's name. Starts with a V. And then we'll fill in the rest of that later. But it's what the pickups are now, and they sound great.
Oh, the Villix.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I knew we'd fill it in.
Yeah,
so,
there we go. Yeah.
And there's a lot more options than now. On my older model, there's just, it's in stereo, and you'll switch to nothing except...
Is that the stick-up you have on yours?
I don't know. What's that?
I don't even know. I've never really...
Oh, it's...
The original.
Yes. It's the...
Yeah, I think isn't that the original stick-up was the first one or something? I don't know.
I don't know.
That's one of the things I guess I really like about the NS is that there's no options really to...
Hence, when I got that one, there was no options, and I don't have to remember anything.
Yeah, so, it's you can get the kind of, now wood colors and the neck and those kinds of things, but, the pickups are always the same. You can get the MIDI on there if you want it. But that's it.
Not
here it is.
Here it is. You got your mono or stereo. Yeah. Those are the options. Though, didn't you find when you first got it, you're going, well, there's knobs on knobs. I don't know what they do, and there's a switch, and it was confusing to me. But I'm simple-minded. But I did figure it out. but not so many options. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what we were going to talk about. I was
Okay.
asking you to remember, to remind me, to remind you, to remind me.
Okay.
So
Remind me.
okay, you get your NS. You get your NS stick. Get it right here. And where do you put the knobs? They're notched,
Yes.
and you kind of figure, okay, I'll go to the notch, which is halfway.
I'll tell you what you first told me.
I'm ready.
This is my Don Schiff story. I'll tell you my Don Schiff. So,
Yes.
the first time I met you,
Me.
this guy, I said, well, because I didn't know how to set it, and I'm like, how should I set these knobs? And we are bassists. So you turn that bass knob as high as you can.
Right. And then more.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So is that how you...
We are bassists, and you crank this knob all the way. Now, we're not necessarily treblists, so that gets the first notch. So that's the way I've always done it.
So you keep the treble, though, like at the notch, which is the 12 o'clock
yes.
kind of thing. And then you turn the bass EQ up
all the way. Well, the E... Yeah, you're right.
That's
the
EQ
EQ
knob.
Yeah. All the way up. And the only time that I'll move the treble all the way up is after I've got vampire strings, and I need to have some sort of click definition. Like, well, I better make them sound new again. There we go. Good for another 5 months.
So those who don't know vampire strings, you had to check out Don's video on changing strings. I also referred to in my video. I refer to his video in my video about vampire strings as well. So check that out.
Check that out immediately.
It's basically referring to your strings getting dead.
Oh yeah. So when do you change strings?
They don't have any bite. Is that what?
Oh, nice. That's good. Yeah, that's what I said.
or they're the living dead.
The living dead was it? Yeah, because they're still nice.
Wouldn't that be zombie strings though?
That's another department when they're.
You really should consult the department of naming.
Yeah, I think so. Before I go blabbing about it, I would figure. Did you ever have a string uncoil? That would be more like mummy strings with the rags hanging off. I've had that happen once.
Really?
Yeah. And you'll see it start to uncoil, so you have to start playing faster because it gets flatter and flatter until it pops and breaks. So
wow.
You got to be quick.
Yeah.
But the living dead strings or the vampire strings, when do you change strings? So, obviously when the tone isn't what you want anymore, but I do like crisp, really nice, or darker and don't ring as much, has uses for great percussion sounds, and as long as it's holding pitch.
I guess if you're like you do, you're recording for other people and you want to you have certain sounds and you refer to them differently, like you have a P bass for a P bass sound, Rickenbacker sound, and as for the NS sound, and so you kind of want that range, so maybe you like the dead sound, but at a certain point, there's no brightening it. You can't.
No, you can always dull it out, but you can't make the dead come back to life. So
for me, I'll change them every 6 months and I start hearing it, obviously, and even on a regular bass, like a week or two later was when the bass sounded the best.
Yeah.
Because you wear them in. Whenever I put the strings on, I'd yank on them and try and do all that.
Then it'll hold pitch really good that way too.
Yeah. So, try to do that. Same thing with the NS, but I do find that I don't want it to get that dead. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
And it's just my sound. And so to be in that range of consistency is from the 1 to 2 weeks later to about 6 months for me at least, and then I know I should change the strings. I also feel like the intonation isn't as accurate.
That's how I know that it's real bad when you play that note and then you play it an octave higher, and then oh wait, now it's flat, and so then it's out of round. I guess is what happens from banging on it and then just won't hold the pitch as well. And a good time to change.
So something for me, so you taught me about that, turn up the bass, and at the time, you recommended the Pod X3.
Yeah.
And that's a
Good
great
one.
piece of gear. I mean, because it has all the bass stuff. It's got all the guitar amps in it also.
Yeah.
Because the newer stuff doesn't have all the bass
I
stuff.
know, the 5000 HX or something.
HDs
Yeah.
and stuff. And I haven't even really looked at the even newer stuff that they're coming out with now.
More for guitarists, I thought. But when I knew someone, Mark McCrite, who worked at Line 6 as well, and he was in Rocket Scientist. He says, well, we've got this new piece of gear coming out where you beta test it with us. And so I thought, wow, this is...
Which one's that, the X3?
Yeah, made for the stick, because it had a bass pod in it, which I really liked, and I used to own a bass pod, and a guitar pod. And I went, this is great, and they're separate, and they're each stereo if you wanted it, and so I used to just pan my bass tone in the middle, and then the melody side effects harder left and right, so that it just sounded more in full. I always felt that sometimes my top strings are outweighed by the largeness of the bass tone, but by panning my effects out left and right, then it sounded nice and equal.
Oh yeah, and you can, because each side can be affected separately.
Yeah.
They also had wonderful compressor on there. It was modeled after the L2.
Yeah.
LA2A actually, and it sounded great. And just the stuff on that was really great. It's just too bad that they kind of discontinued it.
Yes.
So Line 6, please. But I mean, I've seen interviews where, like the bass pod, people still love the bass pod. They say that's the greatest thing.
It sounds wonderful.
It's really, really good.
When I first got my first pod, and I used it a lot, it was really, really great. And my dog went over and peed on it. And it shorted it out. And so I had to write the back. I go, I now have a pea pod. And so at least they went with the humor, and they sent me another one. And I went, okay, this one works. That's much nicer.
So where I was going with that was, so when I turned it up, for some reason, whatever effects chain I was using was getting overloaded with the bass. And I don't know if mine's a little bit different from yours. I'm not sure, but it was just overloading. It was, distorting, digital distortion. So I set everything just up the middle, just in the middle notch. It worked great. I know, but I've changed the way I've been doing things, because I love that low end, just but you still have to make it come through, because if it's just low lows, then it's just, unless you have a subwoofer, you're not going to hear it.
Right.
So then you turn up the treble side a little bit, and I wasn't really getting that upper end that I was really happy with, the way it was coming together as an EQ. So I was talking to you about this.
Oh, nice.
This is the Billy Sheehan signature drive pedal. And he just came out with a new one. This is from EBS. Make great bass equipment. This pedal, I actually don't use the drive on it. I just use, it's got this wonderful blend function. So you plug this is my bass side would go in here, and then you have a clean signal, and then you have this other channel, which is a drive channel, and it has this tone knob, which is, I think, just pretty much kind of...
Is the clean the mix knob?
No, it's not a mix knob. It's a clean level. So I have it set here, and then you have a level for your drive channel. You can just bring in that channel.
Nice. And
I either use no drive or a little bit of drive. And then this tone knob, you just kind of get a real honky sound almost.
Yeah.
Just that no bass at all in it. It's just kind of... But then you just mix that in. You just blend that level into it. And it just really gave that top end that I wanted. And what I do now is I turn up the bass and I turn the treble down all the way. So it's just almost like that. But then you can, because the drive gives that upper harmonics.
Yeah.
And just blending that in, I just like that sound so much better. And the great thing about this has 2 loops in it. So it's got a clean loop, so you can put an effects chain on your clean side, and then a drive loop, which you can put an effects. It's a separate insert channel on that side, and then blend them together. And it even has a compressor on there. So
okay, I gotta try that.
It's a really cool thing, and so that got me into blending. So now my new stuff, which I'm moving totally into the box and using was it, that man, I can't remember the name of it now.
It's gonna happen. There it is.
Stage.
Oh, let's get the other hand.
Main stage. There we go. Main stage. It's an Apple product, but it I set up a clean channel, kind of just with a, and you can put different amps on it. So I start with a flip top bass sound. Nice round bottom end to that.
Is that the B15 version?
Yeah.
I love that.
Of course, they don't call it that. They call it flip top. And then on a separate channel, I have maybe I put a little drive on it, but then it's going through like an SVT style amp, and very more punchy kind of. But then I roll off the low end or a filter out. Just a high pass filter on that, so it doesn't cause any phasing issues on the low end, because I just love that low end just to be real nice.
Excellent.
And then bring that in, and again I'm just sending bass, bass turned up, no treble through that, and just blend it together. And I sometimes even bring a third one if I really want a nice drive sound, distortion. Keep that solid bass foundation, just bring in some distortion sounds, and
that's wonderful.
Really been really cool. But this pedal really got me into it. Of course, on a computer you can just do so much more.
I know. It's the beauty of it. When I do recording, I use the CLA, the Chris Lord Algae little plug-in, and we were talking about the honk that you just add that in. It was comparable to that, though. I do that too, just a little bit. That's a nice tone.
For studio people, you test your mix in all kinds of speakers, and what I do is I'll shut off my subwoofer or listen through my computer speakers or my cell phone, and if I can't, you're never going to get that low end through those. So it's like,
but you want to hear something.
Still got to still hear bass, so you got to have those upper harmonics, and that's a way to bring, blend in the upper harmonics with a distortion or a honkiness or something like that.
I usually record at 44.1, 24-bit, and this session that I'm doing now for someone, they're like, oh no, we wanted it 96, 34, or 32. Oh wow! And so I'm thinking, well, from what I was told, I can't hear that high. Not because I'm old. But then someone else told me that records that like that. They were saying, well, even though you can't hear those frequencies, they do resonate and affect the ones that you can hear. And I learned something. The bass is punchier at 96. I like it.
Yeah. Wow.
It just drives my computer crazy. I can't use as many plugins that I can use one. But yeah, so yes, all the higher frequencies, things that you plug in and loops that you make to bring all the harmonies in compliance. That's not a good word. In focus with each other is great.
So when you approach the instrument, do you approach it as two separate instruments, like you play strictly melodies and chords on the right hand, just bass on the left hand, or do you think of the instrument as one big instrument?
Good question. It's more of an arrangement thought before I play of what it is that I want to say.
Have we talked about this?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to remember. Am I saying the same thing I said before? Or am I losing my mind? And he's thinking, well, that's not what he just said. Man's losing his mind. So, well, what I recall, I said, and I said it really well too.
You did.
Let's see if I can bring it back.
We can do the silent version later.
Yeah, you can see the silent movie. We had an hour's worth of this first recording, and only to find out, always test audio and visual before you make a podcast. So it looked good. It was just a silent movie. What was the question?
Your approach to the instrument, is it two separate, one big instrument?
Yes, and like we said before, it's in the thought process of not just thinking of, oh, I'm playing this instrument, and then thinking of it physically. You're only as good as your coordination and your ability on the instrument if you're thinking it like that. But if you think, what is it that I want to say? And let me build the line in my head first, and then decide how you're going to play it on the instrument. So I have the choice of playing which is great, but I can also so I'm not limiting myself to it has to be tapped. It could be plucked. It's what I want to say, and so I just think about how big of a sound do I want to make? How do I want to pocket it? And then I'll play it. Then I'll think about that first. Sometimes, but it's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes I just pick up the instrument and just play.
Yeah.
It wasn't as good as the first time I said it, but
I guess the videos I've watched you play, most of you, I know you're processing it in stereo because I think you're doing different compressions on each side and things like that. But you do kind of play it as like more of a one instrument kind of thing.
Oh, a concept. I see what you're saying. Yeah, a concept of it speaking all at once, rather than thinking, well, now I'm going to be a flashy guitarist in this hand, and I'll be a flashy bassist in the hand.
Like what I do.
But you do it greatly.
Because I like to, just have a nice bass and then real distorted guitar-ish, lead lines and that kind of thing. That's just the music I hear in my head, and that's what I want to play. I guess it's just all about the goals that you have.
It is. I think Emmett commented on my playing once a long time ago, saying that it was coming from a bassist, but what can I do to accompany that part? And then I took it a step further in that, okay, I can comp some chords around my bass line, but what could I do that would take my bass line into the beginning of the melody frequency, into the guitar, and then a melody line or a chord comp with that. So it's one large sound playing as an ensemble rather than two separate instruments, a guitar and bass. It's more of like a mono approach with a larger range.
So when you think of a song, when you create your own original music, like you're in the shower.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it in the shower.
No, me either. It's rough enough to be me.
But when you have that moment of inspiration, you're like, oh, you know what? This is a song pops in your head. What is it that pops in? Is it a melody or is it, words, or is it a bass line?
Melody.
Melody, yeah.
It'll be a melody, and then I'll figure, okay, wonderful writing partner I have, Tully Winfield. And when I first met her, she didn't play an instrument per se, and she just sung, and she would hear these melodies, and she would say, I'm sorry, I can't tell you what the chord is that I'm hearing around. And I go, yeah, you can. And it just hit me. I said, okay, sing me your melody line. And she did, and I said, okay, now give me the first little phrase where you're hearing the chord. I said, now sing me a harmony line. She'd sing the harmony line. I said, now give me one more harmony line. And I said, now I've got the chord.
Oh, yeah.
And so I said, so you do know what you're hearing, and here's how you can express it for me so I can hear it, and I know what the chord is. Usually I could guess what she wanted really good, but occasionally I didn't, and that's how we would go about it. So once I hear my melody line, like anybody that's played an instrument for a while, I know that feeling, that's a minor chord, that's a major chord, that's a major 7 chord. And so you kind of know just by how you're feeling what the chords are underneath. And then I'll build a groove. And sometimes when I write a song, especially if I write it on the stick or the NS stick, I may not record it that way. I just wrote it that way, but it would be better suited if it were on another instrument. So
okay. I mean, this is a great... I think it's the ultimate singer-songwriter instrument.
Yeah. It would be an example of... Oh, I'm going to tune first. It's bothering me. Toaster ID.
So while we're waiting for this... Actually, I'll play. You know what?
No, we could do that too.
I'm going to stop it right now.
Okay. And we're back as if we never left.
And we're back.
So an example of a tune that I would write, say on the NS, say it was going... But this is a better version, you'll like a lot better. nice and I like it and I would sing it and I would play it live like that. But when I would record it, I would probably have a guitar player play that line and I would play a slightly different bass line.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote it on the NS, but I wouldn't necessarily record it on the NS, maybe just the bass line on the NS.
Yeah.
And then I would think arrangement-wise what really suits it as a bigger production song. And then since I bought a violin and a cello and a viola, well, we'd have to have a string arrangement around it.
Yeah. I guess, again, it goes back to the goals that we each have for our instrument is, when you write, when your goals are, or you have the vision of, you might write the song on there, but your bigger vision is just, maybe use it as a writing instrument. And,
yes.
But you have in your mind, I can put a string and arrangement here, use something else here, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like for me, my ultimate goal is I want to be a one-man band playing, guitar leads and the bass at the same time while I sing, and I'll have a drum track. Yeah. So, very different things. And so I limit myself to what this instrument can do.
Right.
And so, again, comes out with different things.
Yeah.
For me, I think of melody or hooks that come into my mind.
Yeah.
And so, and I've never, before the NS, I had a very hard time trying to find a hook on a guitar because I don't know what it was. I had an electric guitar and I'd kind of go like this, but especially with that one space of tuning weirdness that
I know, it's always, yes, I think we've all played guitar, and some people it doesn't bother.
Yeah.
For me, it should have just been straight force to begin with. I would have had a lot more fun.
That's what I always thought, too. Yeah. Of course, unless you're Gary, who gets a...
Yeah. Oh, that's
gets
beautiful.
Gets the NS, and it's strung that way, or it's tuned that way when he gets it and thinks that's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, it didn't slow him down at all, now did it?
Now he's just an amazing player with that kind of tuning. But anyway, so for me, I just never got that. And also there's an amazing relationship that happens with bass and melody or chords. And that whole relationship is harder to kind of understand just on a guitar because it doesn't really get into the very bass range.
Yeah.
And a bass doesn't get into those real nice high melody ranges just like this does. And for me, it's like I could hold down 2 notes just randomly and sometimes they sound wonderful, just random notes, and I have no idea how they relate to each other or anything, but it becomes the basis for me for a new song. I can start, I go, whoa, and then where would I go from there?
Yeah.
But then I tell myself, where would I not usually go to? I usually go from here to here, but this time I'm going to go this way. What is that going to do?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go opposite directions.
And that's the beauty of it, the full experimentation of not relying on your knowledge of music, relying on your experimentation of it and where your ear's leading you that particular day.
Yeah.
It's sometimes nice to let a day or two go by and then approach an idea again and you feel different and could be better.
And I think that's really in just general, not just for NS, but for normie sticks and everything.
Music in general.
Just that, the orchestra, the full orchestra right there in your hands is a phenomenal thing.
Do you play piano at all?
I used to. Yeah.
And I used to write on piano a lot, and I was never a wonderful pianist, but I know my way around it, and it was just an interesting phenomenon that usually my style of playing is a lot like the NS stick or the grand stick where, get the octaves going on the piano. And I would hear it as a bass or a lower end of an orchestra in my head or in the center of where I would feel music. And it wasn't a piano anymore. It was the whole orchestra. And that's how I feel sometimes with the sticks as well.
My problem with the keyboard is I played in the key of C all the time.
The people's key.
What is these weird up and downs? Even though I took lessons and everything, just wasn't my instrument.
I used to think, oh boy, if you're in the key of F sharp, there's so many of the black keys in there. And then the pianist told me, well, that's great because you already have the built-in diatonic scale right there. Oh, wait a minute, pentatonic. It's some kind of tonic that you can have a scale. And it's built in on all black keys. I went, oh, okay. Well, that's
you can write a song on all the black keys.
Yeah.
I know there are songs like that.
All of a sudden it's good.
In high school, I had a keyboardist, and there's an intro to his song. It's like, and then he could just go on the black keys and land on the right note at the end, and it just sounded just fine.
That's jazz.
So where was I going with that?
Oh, now you're getting like me.
So yeah, the whole songwriting process. Yes, I'd come up with the hook or whatever, and then start from there. And I just didn't have that opportunity before when I was just playing bass.
Yeah.
I'd play it an octave lower, but it still didn't translate to a full song, I guess, for me. And because my goal also is to have everything right here.
Yeah.
It just falls into place.
Wasn't it fun when you were playing bass and the family would get around your mom and dad? Now, Dean, go and get your bass and play for the family. Play them a song. Boom, 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 boom. Now you can play the whole song. And here's melody too. You don't have to imagine.
Yes.
There we go.
So, I'm still not a cover tune guy.
Oh no, me either. Could never remember it if I didn't write it. And if I did write it, it's hard enough to do I really remember it? I don't know. But yeah, not a cover tune guy.
Although covers are important too.
You can learn a lot from them,
mm-hmm.
But it's just my goal in music is I have something to say musically, and I'm always hearing music in my head and original pieces that I'm composing. And my wife loves to hear the radio, and she says, ever since we've gotten married, I don't get to listen to music anymore, because I always say, well, think of it as when you turn the radio on, I already got one going on in my head, and now there's two different stations, and it's really uncomfortable. So when you're by yourself, you crank that radio and knock yourself out. Yes.
Nice.
I started out doing casuals, as we called them back east, and was never very good at it. I knew the first part of Girl from Ipanema and The Look of Love. Never any tune all the way through. I just couldn't remember it. And I figured, this isn't for me. I'm not good at this. There are people that are amazing at it and great. And I'm not that. Here's something I wrote. As my dad would say, somebody would come up and request a tune that he didn't know or didn't want to play. He'd say, oh, I'm going to play this other song that has a lot of the same notes, but in a different order. I go, oh, good one, Dad.
So I've got some questions for you.
For sure.
This is for like beginners.
Mm-hmm.
What is something that beginners should know, or even someone who hasn't picked up specifically the NS, I guess? What would you recommend to either beginners or even people who haven't, or thinking about picking up the NS?
When you start to play this instrument, and like any other 4-string bass, when you first start and you just play the notes, what's interesting about these instruments is the range. And so as bassists, we're used to plucking low strings, and that works great, and it feels right. And you get to the D string, and you go, okay, kind of feels right, but okay, it's getting a little thin. And then you go to the G string, and you're playing a middle C, and it's not really am I telling the truth there? Yes, I am. So then you're plucking it like a bass, but it's sounding more and more like a thinner guitar string.
Yeah.
And it doesn't quite feel the same, but you keep going up. And if you're not careful, then all of a sudden, thinking as a bassist, your notes sound like you're overplaying them.
Right.
So a good skill and technique to practice is just going up and keep going up into the higher range and keeping it sounding musical. It'll already sound like it'll just sound like a bass going higher and higher, and you want to keep the integrity of it as it goes higher, not thinking of it like it's a bass, but now it's getting more melodic. And then when you get a feel for that, your bass lines, when you go up higher, don't if you were to play them on a bass and you go up really high, the string's really thick and it sounds choked. When we do it on this, because the strings are thinner, it becomes melodic, not just a really thick high string tone.
These, like the low B string on this is like a low B string on a 5-string bass. But like the what are the next strings?
There now it makes sense. E.
The E, A, and G strings, they get progressively thinner much faster than you would on a bass guitar.
Yeah, which is a good thing. Like we were saying in version 1, that when I first got my Ed S, and I figured I'm a bass player, and it's starting to sound like that when I get up higher. So if I had bass strings, then it would be a perfect instrument. So I ruined it. It didn't sound better. The strings were choked, and it didn't just play right anymore. So I went to the Emmett's thought about this a lot, and so why don't I just start there and go, it's a great idea as is, let me make it smooth and adapt first before I make any changes. And that was a big turning point for me, because when playing bass, you can really dig in and pound the crap out of the strings. And
it's a real physical instrument.
Yes, and you get a tone that's workable in some situations and sounds great when you overplay it. I discovered with the NS, I've gotten my best bass tones and best tones in the melody when I don't overplay it. And you discover, well, what's the peak point of how hard I want to hit it before it just becomes a thwap or a snap or just a sound rather than a tone. And so that little exercise will give you that.
Are you plucking closer to the bridge or not necessarily?
When I first got this, I went, well, okay, I'm going to play it, but it feels too loose for me there. And you get a lot of sound with your note because you're thinking as a bassist, this is what I do. Like Hercules fingers, and you pound your way through it. Doesn't give you the nice tone. There is a nice tone in here. You hit it light. If you're feeling that, oh, I want to feel the string tension more, then you just play back toward the bridge. Oh, not that far.
On the other,
on the other side of the post, you get a lot better. It's a lot tone there. Otherwise, it's a harp, and a whole different instrument. You can pull all you want, and the tension is there that you need. Another good exercise that I just thought of is you can play to the left side of the post, then work your way up. And discover how hard you need to pull or not pull to get a tone. There you go. I'm going to work on that.
Now, I remember there's a website called, if you go to stickist.com, and there's a link there, but there's also nsstickist.com, which must have been set up a while ago.
Yeah. I think Manny Tao set that up many moons ago. And
it's there for reference, I guess, now. Mm-hmm. And you did a bunch of kind of lessons on there. And I remember, I think I got through like 2.
Me too.
Well, part of it was that you had to kind of start reading notes on there.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say. That's kind of, after a while, I think I did 7 lessons, and I'm writing it out and going, who's going to read on this thing? I don't even get charts on it anymore.
And I really tried to start reading notes. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it had wonderful things on the tapping, try and tap the same, volume and tone out of each string.
Yeah. Comparing the plucking and the tapping together.
Compare those two, exactly. Yeah. So that's where I started. I remember something called like the Magician's Hat or something like that.
Wow, good one.
Yeah. And is that the one where like you're playing a chord, but you're playing a different root on the bass side? Is that what that was?
I think so.
And that blew my mind. I mean, it might have been there. I can't remember. That was something about the instrument which allowed me to explore. And you can do it on a keyboard also, but like you're playing.
You're changing the bass note, and it, though you don't change anything on your right hand.
Yeah, so you're playing, what was it, like a G minor on the right hand or something? Or
a G chord in the right hand.
Yeah, and then...
we can reenact.
Yes.
So you have a G, and everybody would go, oh, he's playing a G chord. Excellent. However, it's never the chord you think it is until the bass player lets you know it is. And one of my favorite voicings is then you don't put the G in the bass, you play E. Now you got E minor 7.
Yeah, and so you're not playing an E on your right hand at all.
Right.
It's the bass note, the root note, it doesn't exist there.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. Once you get off of the G, and then I think it was a while ago since I did the magic hat, but let me reproduce some magic and remember what it is. So.
We can go online and look at it.
Oh, that's cheating. And if everybody's like me, they're too lazy to go do that, or it takes too long for it to come up. Say, oh, I've just lost interest. So let's just say I remember it. And I like to, so I have a G, and then I do a pull off, and I'm barring these.
Okay, yeah.
And so I have the G. But now I'm going to change the root. And that's the magic hat. Oh, the bass changes, but the right hand stays.
Yeah.
At least as we remember, we think it is.
We think it's that, yeah. But that was huge for me on to be able to do that, and explore it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's whole songs where I would play, maybe not the whole song, but
a lot where the right hand's the same.
Not even that, but none of the chords on my right hand have the root that I play with my left, and just
arranging. I think what we were saying before is when you were trying to learn tunes, and you go, oh well, guitar played it, and it's not the same chord, or I don't have that many options and notes under my right hand. So you go, okay, well I can take the root out, and then what are the color tones in it that make it feel like that? And just choose those options.
Yeah, like I did
wisely.
So I did a video called "Learning Purple Rain," and it had, I can't remember which chord it was, but yeah, it had exactly that. But it had other things in it. There was a chord that was a something 2 and also a 7 chord. And sometimes because there's limit to how many strings you have and how many fingers you can use and all this kind of stuff.
Are we recording? Oh,
yes.
Okay. I thought you were explaining what you were going to say.
Did that.
Oh, you're very good.
So you kind of have to pick and choose what notes you want to use. And so in the case of Purple Rain, I played the regular chord without the 2 in it. And I was like, no, that's not the chord, because that 2 made that the song. It was the song. And so if you played it without it, you'd probably get by without it.
Yeah.
But
wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. So, I had to choose a different note. And I do that with other songs too. 7 chords sometimes. It's like, do I really need that 7? It's probably, because sometimes when you look at a song, it says it's something 7, but you're not actually playing the 7. It might be the singing might be on the 7, but they're like, oh no, that's part of the chord. It's like, no, it's not. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Don't confuse me.
Yeah.
So, it's the decisions that you have to make on that. And so I was like, okay. So one time, one of the chords was, am I getting it out of frame?
Oh, there you go. Look good, Dean. Very
nice. So I was like, well, I can't get all the notes in there, the root, the second, the fourth, or whatever the chord was. So I was like, well, what if I not play the root and I'll just play the root on the bass?
Yeah.
It works great, And those are the decisions you have to make. It probably doesn't sound like the original completely.
Right.
But what are you going to do?
Well, it infers it well, and it's the best arrangement you can do on it for that.
And so you think of, like, for me, I need to think about what is the arrangement, what makes the song, and so you have to be true to that if you're doing a cover tune, especially. So.
Yep, all about picking and choosing the notes you want. Like we did, move the bass around.
Yeah, working within the limitations of it.
Yeah.
The MS. So.
And fifths and fourths is interesting as well. You can create a bass line in fifths, and then it might not work in fourths. As an interesting example we had on the first version was in Rainfall, was originally written on the 10-stringer, 12, whatever I had at the time. And then when I played it on the NS, I had to have it feel the same, but I couldn't have all the notes.
No, that was actually on the second time.
Really? So I bet you enjoyed it this time. Are you sure? Because I was gearing this whole conversation to replay it. Oh, well, never mind. As long as you're sure, Dean. Not that my memory is a
I don't know.
All right. I'm going with it. It is.
All right. So, I think one of the last things I want to talk about is the half fretless. I think a lot of people are interested in the half fretless, and
it was great.
They wonder about, well, what is it? So why don't we?
Yes, could we?
Why don't we swap
reason,
out? Because yours doesn't look like this the original half fretless that Emmett was making.
Yeah.
So there's ones floating out there that look a little bit different than yours.
Right.
Also, let's talk about the playability, all that kind of stuff.
Oh yes. Never touch it to your head. And we turn the bass side all the way up, And then there we go. Yeah. Why don't we hear anything, Dean? Must be a special version. Oh, sometimes you gotta get its attention. I have a dog. Did I mention that? Oh, and then you have to hit the switch.
The mono switch.
Yes. So. There we go. The bass side is fretted. Now I did play. Somebody ordered an all fretless stick, NS, and I thought, wow, that's got to be a bad idea because once I played a fretless guitar and I hit a bar chord and my fingers aren't straight. None of them are. So everything was a little wacky out of tune, and I thought it would be impossible to play in a style of. And have these chords fretless because I'm not right on pitch. However, I had to retract it because I could do it. I had to really pay attention and be careful, accurate, but it sounded nice. But I didn't do that. I just went for the half fretless. As a bass player, you need to have a fretless bass and assortment of different basses. And I used these NSs as my first bass of choice because I really love the tone. And so I got my fretless tone. Yeah, you get a good. Now you can get even more though. That's without the added feature, which is using just the back pickup.
You have to let everybody know you have a fretless.
Yeah, it's the I'm broadcasting. Look, Mom, no frets. So, the slight adjustment, if you're coming from the full fretted version, is that we're used to playing in between the frets or slightly behind them. So, then when you take the frets out, you have to be right where the fret was to be in pitch. So, Emmett had a great idea of retuning it so that, yes, this is my lovely wife, Cynthia.
Can they take your Prius to go down there so they don't have to pay?
Well, sure. Just make sure they've been drinking and are driving as fast as they can.
Okay.
Before they have an accident.
Driving, and drugs. All right.
Yeah.
Uncle Don said cool.
Uncle Don's really cool. He knows nothing. So you have to play right behind where the fret was, or you'll be out of pitch. And then Emmett had an idea. He goes, well, why don't you just detune it so it's right where it was? It's a great idea until you play an open note, and then you're out of tune. And so Emmett wisdom said, well, don't play open note. Yeah, because you really don't on the regular
stick. Yeah, you don't.
I said, but I don't do that. So anyway, the adjustment is your muscle memory remembers that you would normally play the bass note there, and you just go, there we go. Now we're in pitch, because you're always comparing it to the exact in tune of the fret. You get used to it.
Do you find it easier not to look at it?
There's a great illusion, too, if you have one like this that's, whatever this material is that's shiny. From my vantage point, as I look at it, I see the fret here, and there's an illusion that there's a bar there. However, the further up you go, then you notice it's an illusion because you start playing out of tune again as you're following that line. Works great here from fret 5 to, 9.
Now this one, Emmett put a plate on top of it.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that right?
Yes, and I think he really liked that idea, and it looks really nice too.
Now, did he? Okay, so it's the same height, almost just about the same height as the fret beside it.
So I think that it would be like a full fretted, but now the plate's on top of it.
Right.
Hence the little moon shapes got cut in half. But it's okay. They'll be all right. It's also good for I got used to it. So you just, your ear tells you, okay, when you're a little flat or a little sharp. It's annoying at first, but then you get used to it and you play in pitch. Generally, I'm not always great at it, but it's a fretless, and you let people know it's fretless by, oh, we're wrong. Kids today. So we have company here at Schiff Central, so they're being polite by avoiding coming in and out. Did I answer any kind of question?
Is there anything else about the fretless?
Oh, that is wonderful. You can still do your slapping. Everything's the same on it, just fretless. Oops. So notice the whole purpose there was changing techniques while I was playing, and it's nice and even. They're beautiful instruments, well made, and you can switch techniques, which is my favorite things that really drew me to the NS, because I could pluck it and tap it, and now with the fretless I can do all the same on that, but plus had the fretless tone on it, which is golden.
Do you find any difference between the metal and wood?
Oh, my favorite, if I had like a whole lot of money just to go, and now I want a red one and a green one, would be all bamboo. I just noticed that
Bamboo fretless.
Bamboo anything. Fishing pole, everything bamboo. I played a bamboo neck, and I really liked it. And it wasn't necessarily that I noticed any great tone difference, but it felt great. Just for me, the feeling of the I guess the thickness of wood and the tone I was hearing back. I really liked that.
This one is
not bamboo.
Not bamboo.
No, I don't know what it is, but it was
wangi or wengi.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how it's spelled either, but anything I don't know how to wangi. Yeah. Oh, it's wangi. One big giant wangi. But when I wanted one, I was going for I wanted all bamboo. This was already ready available, and it's like, well, I could wait, or I could have one right now. I'll go with now. It wasn't a giant tone difference. I've done Emmett, let me try this one, let me try that one, and then let me loop the tone, so when I try the other one, I can directly compare it, and I never, to my ear, found any great difference in tonality in the woods that made a huge difference of have to have that for my sound. So I went with, let me take that one. It's available now, and it's half just the way I want it.
Great. I think you've answered all my questions.
Excellent, Dean.
I think this one's a wrap.
Good one. Thank you all for watching the Dean Show.
Thanks for hanging out for so many episodes.
All wrapped into one. We did the best recap we could, a best of.
So I guess I'll wrap this up by saying thank you for watching, and have a great day.
Yes, goodbye everyone. See you everywhere.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for lunch, Dean.
What do I do now?
Check to see that we have audio. And excellent. Take 2.
This is part 2 of a 1-part series.
That's gone on now for a while.
If you missed part 1, don't worry about it. It doesn't exist. All right. All right. What am I saying? Here you go. Hi, everybody. This is Dean for the NS Stick channel.